Good morning. How are you? Welcome to the Vinny Brusco Show podcast, episode number 370. I don't fucking know. 375. That's my paper. It's my Jay Leno paper tap. Today's guest, very excited to have on Mr. Omar Figueroa. Luis Omar Figueroa. I know Luis through CrossFit, but he is a real estate professional. Luis is actually the man behind Hudson Group Realty Network, HGRN, mortgage lending company. But Luis is more than just a mortgage lender and more than just a real estate guy. Knowing Luis through CrossFit and following him on Instagram and following his journey, he's a really mindful, conscious guy. He's a father, he's a husband, he's an entrepreneur, and he has brought mindfulness and consciousness and really cares about his clients and really wants to make the world a better place and really brings mindful and conscious effort into what he does. And he's super passionate about it. And Luis is actually, it was pretty cool. Luis is working with a marketing and advertising group, Digitality Marketing. So JC and Darren came in with him. We had a camera crew. We had the lights. We had the whole bit. So it was really awesome to have them here as well and capture the podcast. And, you know, it was fun. It was fun to dive into that aspect of Luis and not just the real estate stuff and dive into some deep, mindful conversation. So I hope you enjoy the podcast with Luis Omar Figueroa. And you can check out Luis all over social media, but it's Ask Luis Omar. That's his Instagram handle. And his website, of course, is askluisomar.com. And you can check him out on HGNR, Hudson Group Realty Network. All 374 episodes are available over on iTunes. So if you can head on over there, subscribe, rate, and review the podcast, it means a shit ton to me. Means so much to me, more than you'll ever know. So head on over there, leave a little review, subscribe to the podcast, rate the podcast. It means a lot, so do that for me. Appreciate it. I'm also offering a 30-minute free coaching consultation call, a discovery call, if you will. I'm a certified life coach through Journey Life Coaching, and Jonathan Kim, the Angry Therapist on Instagram. You know his book, I Used to Be a Miserable Fuck. Well, I received my coaching certification through them, through Journey Life Coaching, and I'm here to help you discover what is holding you back, your false narratives, the lies you tell yourself about yourself. How do you get past those, and how do you step into a space where you are taking strides towards achieving your goals? I'm here to invoke what you already know, to bring out the best version of yourself, to step into a space of growth and wellness and help you instill those practices through mindful conversation and listening and being here and holding space, along with journaling prompts and homework assignments. You're going to get homework. How fun is that? For more information on that, you can book your free consultation over at vinnybrusco.com or give me a call or a text, 914-712-8845, 914-712-8845. And I'm also teaming up with Rise Above Flotation in Mount Kisco for their 6-week stress release program. It's 6 weeks of 6 key categories that contribute to stress: breathing and meditating, hydration, nutrition, wellness, relationships, and sleep. Those are the big 6 categories that people so often ignore that are key contributors to you being stressed. So it's 6 weeks of accountability, in those categories, along with 6 weeks, once a week, 1 hour. That's all you need to do is carve out for yourself and hop into the sensory deprivation tank, which has been a major tool in my life. Floating has become a non-negotiable, if you will. It is a non-negotiable. I am a huge advocate for the sensory deprivation tank. It really changed the way I think. It changed the way I analyze my thoughts. It gave me the clarity and the space to do those things, to think my thoughts in a safe, contained space and be the observer of my thoughts. So it's an amazing, amazing tool. So I can't stress how awesome it is. So for more information on that, head on over to riseaboveflotation.com or 914-241-1900, 914-241-1900. That is pretty much it. I hope you enjoy the podcast with Luis Omar Figueroa from Hudson Group Realty Network. And before we get started, a Vikings funeral, of course, to Chadwick Boseman. Wild kind of experience with that. Not that I knew him at all, obviously, but kind of just the idea, the reality of being 43 years old, him being a stone's throw from my age, having colon cancer, nobody knowing about it, filming a profound character, and just staying a gentleman, staying a professional, and staying who he is. And that's someone to look at and go, wow, that's an admirable thing, helping children with cancer and going to these cancer wards and showing up in character at all these places and still remaining who you are in essence. So, Vikings funeral to Chadwick Boseman. Crazy. Absolutely crazy. Just never know. Sorry for that downer note before we record the podcast, but all right, hope you enjoy the show.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Vinny Brusco Show.
Hey guys, this is Dr. Chris Lee.
This is Zach Henson.
Hello everybody, this is Joshua Gray, the Bob Costas of esports, and you're listening to the Robert Downey Jr. of podcasts. That's right, the Vinny Brusco Show.
And here we go.
Truman Show. Reporting, I think I'm in a fucking news desk. Jesus Christ. I have to like shuffle my papers.
Hey, something just in.
Breaking news. So legit.
It looks nice.
It feels nice.
Yeah, I think we're good. I don't think we need any other lighting. It looks pretty good on here. Double check the settings. Yeah, and you know what's I like too is all the lighting you do have in here. It's just accented on the camera right now. So
Look at that.
that's what we're looking like right now.
Oh, look at
So
that.
For Omar and like his personal stuff, we'll have like a just a one-on-one on him, and then yeah, man, if you want to like it's up to you and Omar how you guys want to share the content, but
Yeah, send them everything. Whatever. Looks great. I feel like we already did the podcast, Omar.
I know, I'm done. What are we going to talk about?
Thank you, everybody. Good night.
Start the conversation. No, so honestly, for you guys, how do you usually?
I usually just jump in. There's no real rhyme or reason to it. Whenever whenever it starts, it starts. So
You have any specific questions at all?
I mean, I wrote some stuff down, but I very rarely go by anything.
We did
on
some
here.
stuff, but I also have the questions that you sent me to.
Yeah, I usually don't have like a list of questions. It's just kind of let it just flow the way it is, So this is a pretty legitimate setup. How long have you been working with this?
We've been doing different things. This is the first podcast that we're trying to do. Like I'm starting my own, but
Yes.
You obviously have a lot more experience, so I was like, "Yo, let's do it. Let's just get it.
Yeah.
Let's get it going."
How's the podcast going?
I haven't done one yet.
I thought you did it.
It's like we did a preamble kind of, right? It's a first draft and stuff
Okay.
like that, kind of understand, so people understand what I'm talking about and stuff like that.
Is to like stock up on the content first.
Sure.
So that we have probably like 6 to 8 episodes
Smart.
ahead of time.
Smart.
So that once we launch, the consistency is there, and we never have to worry about like, oh, we have to put this out.
Yeah.
The channel will have something every Friday or something like that. You know, like we
it
have
becomes stressful.
Right, I'm
Like,
sure.
it
Like,
becomes
you work
like-
on your heels.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I like. I like doing that.
He's not like doing
I like doing
stress
that.
behind it?
I don't like the stress behind it, but I like the ability. Like I just like you said, it's like catching like a wave and just letting it go.
I mean, look, if you're moving, it's easy to keep momentum.
That's
it's easy.
it.
It's when you're starting. So
It's starting.
That's kind of like, this is totally different than anything I've ever done.
Sure.
So are we recording? We're going.
Yeah,
with
we're
it? Let's
recording.
go,
Fuck
y'all.
it. Why
All
not?
right, guys, you get to it when you get to it.
You guys are just doing your thing, man. Don't worry about it. It's all good. There's no rhyme or reason to it. I just go. This doesn't have to be anything special.
Yeah. So
what are you saying?
So it becomes a thing where, if you don't start, you don't start.
Yeah.
And I'm a big believer in doing, and you just refine on the way. Like, all right, so we have this. All right, I don't like that. We can tweak that and move that and become what you want.
Right.
But if you always try to just think about what you want and don't do anything, you don't have any application. Application beats theory every time.
Right.
So
Have you always had that kind of mindset?
all my life, without knowing that.
Yeah.
Without knowing that.
So
yeah.
what's an example, like when you were younger or before you had the awareness of the mindset that you could attest that to?
I think a good story is when my guidance counselor told me in high school not to apply for NYU.
Holy shit.
And I was like,
That's
hey.
not their job.
Yeah, I was like, she was like, no, you should try Stony Brook School or SUNY School. And I was like, I know it's $150. I have the money order. Go ahead. I heard you. I'm going to go ahead anyway.
Yeah.
And I got in.
Yeah.
And started my first business, brick and mortar, at 24, a liquor store. Totally on the whim of my friend said, yo, I think it would be a good idea for you. And I was like, yo, I'm going to do it.
Yeah.
They were like, well, I have a spot. I went and checked the spot out. I liked it. I was like, yo, I'm doing it. No retail experience.
Yeah.
No understanding of spread, of buying wholesale, selling retail.
Yeah.
I had no idea what those concepts were on a business scale. I mean, but on other things I understood the concepts, but I never had I didn't know what the exact markups were supposed to be,
Yeah.
and I just did it. And I learned as I went.
And that's kind of the best way to do it, in my opinion. Like some people, because you could analyze and put on Excel spreadsheets and sit there
And create analysis
forever.
paralysis.
Exactly.
Right.
And sit there forever and get lost in that and actually never take that first step into doing something that you kind of want to or should be doing, essentially.
You go into that, we walk into that path, and we talk about limiting self-beliefs, and you are the sum of the people you spend time with, and what if somebody tells you, you shouldn't do that? No, that's impossible.
Yeah.
And then you don't do it.
Well, it becomes a mindset, right? And then that mindset manifests into an actual ego and a personality, and then you're carrying that with you, and then you identify in that space, and that's who
And you
you're
measure
presenting to the
yourself
world.
that way.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And you're presenting that to the world. What have you learned in the Realty Network avenue that kind of aligns with that momentum shift and that flowing and that continuous kind of keep on going?
So the way I got into the whole real estate mortgage lending business, and I had the liquor store in '99. I opened it. In '04, I was recruited by an owner of a bank, and the reason I was recruited was because somebody who worked there, it was like my little cousin. He was like, "Oh, you got to talk to my cousin Omar in the Bronx. He could do all this stuff." So the guy was, he's hyping.
cousin Omar in the Bronx.
He's like, yo. And
He's got a towel. He's just like waving and
does he
shit.
do real estate? He's like, no, but he has his own business, and he's popping. You got to go talk to him. So this guy drove from Long Island in his older Jewish guy in his squish Nike sweatpants and a dress shirt, which I've never seen before.
Great look.
Came to 159 3rd Avenue in the South Bronx.
Yeah.
And had a conversation with me and he was like, listen, I want to speculate in the Bronx. I want to buy some stuff. I hear you're the guy to know. So can you help me? So I was like, well, what do I get paid? And then he started introducing me to, I'll pay you 6% finder's fee. I'll pay you this. So I started understanding on hundreds of thousands of dollars, 6% was a lot of money.
Sure.
So I was like, okay. So I found one. Like a week later, I found one. And we did the deal. He bought the property. And then I was looking for another one. And then, so what I did was, before text and video and all that, I emailed my crew. Yo, man, I'm doing this now. because I was big on the email thing.
Yeah.
Blackberries and stuff.
Sure.
And then people would just send me their friends. Yo, Omar does this. That's it. That was it. Omar's brand was strong enough that Omar does this. Call him for that. And then I started doing loans for people and not really knowing what I'm doing. Went back to the guy who recruited me, and I was like, listen, I have this loan, I have that loan. He's like, listen, you can do all that? He was like, what do you make at the liquor store? At that time, I was like, oh, I make, after everything, about $120. He goes, you'll make 7 times that in the real estate game. He was like, but you have to come here. You have to. I can't. This part-time thing. You'll make money, but not what you could make. And I ended up hiring employees for the store, going to work at the mortgage bank. And at the end of the year, I started the mortgage bank officially in October. And from October to December, 3 months, I made $80,000.
Wow.
Right? And I was like, well, it took me a whole year to do this at the other place. And I was like, yeah, the numbers make sense. I was like, yo, I'm out. And, I had a nightclub and a liquor store. I just liquidated. I didn't even sell. I just liquidated. I just closed them up, sold everything, and pursued that because the numbers made sense, but also the life made sense. Where the liquor store, I had to be there at 9 a.m. to midnight. And let's be totally transparent here. Like, I wasn't that typical liquor store. Like, I was across the street from a precinct, right? So I was young. I was 25. A lot of the police officers were coming out the academy, going there. I built another room for them. Sure. And I had the cigar lounge with the TV and where they can be in full uniform drinking.
I could tell by the setup right now that you don't spare expense.
Right. Well, the thing is, you go all the way, right? Like, if you're going to do something, commit to that shit, right? Go all the way. So this is us talking about it 20 years later. Sure. That I can give you some sort of perspective. Yeah. I was just doing it because I would be like, well, what would I want? What would I want to do?
Sure.
So liquor stores legally close at 12. Now that statute of limitations has passed. Right. I seldom came home before 2. Right. Because between 1 and 2, I made as much money in 2 hours that I made the whole day. Yeah. Because people knew that I was there. People knew I was across from the state police precinct. The police officers would tell them, hey, go to see Omar. Go to see Omar. So, and I carried that over when the opportunity came up for me to open up a nightclub in the Bronx. It was like a bar lounge. Again, man, the after-hours market was crazy. Like, what we made from 8 to 4 was great. What you made from 4 to 7 was crazy. Yeah. Was crazy. But that wasn't really conducive to having a kid and a wife with kids. It was just like I was running both ends. Yeah. And then finally I was like, well, I could make more this way and have a life and actually see my kids once in a while. Sure. And it was a conscious decision of wanting to be present.
I think a big thing in all that is everybody wants a guy, right? Whether it be your barber, your tattoo artist, your real estate guy. Everyone wants, or a gal, everyone wants a person that they know they could send your way or send that person's way. And it's like you want your little tribe, right? You want like your little inner circle of people that, one hand washes the other. Right. And one thing I learned from the book, The War of Art, not the Art of War, The War of Art, is pros hire pros. Okay. Right? It's the idea that you have to outsource. You can't do everything. I hate websites. I don't know how to build a website. I don't want to build a website. Right. I have no desire to do a website.
You need one?
I know I need one.
You don't want to deal with it.
So, so a part of me, but then like your ego, right, tricks in. It's like, I could fucking build a website. I'm same thing with my pool. My little rinky-dinky blow-up pool, right? I was like, I could fucking put up a little pool. I'm like raking it out. My hands are getting blisters because I haven't worked out hard in a long time from the rake. And I put up the pool, and then I look at it, I'm like, this thing is going to overflow.
This took me 2 weeks.
It's lopsided. It's going to the levees are going to break, and I'm going to flood my backyard. But I had to drain the entire thing and do it all over again, then hire someone to do it inevitably.
The right way.
Where if I would have just checked my ego and checked myself a little bit and said, this isn't my thing. Right. Like, this is not my wheelhouse. You want to talk about philosophy? Let's go. Right. But building a pool, putting up a pool, not my thing. How has ego or that persona kind of diluted for you? Because you have to check yourself, especially when it comes to like a liquor store or being around certain people. Where have you found those opportunities to kind of like check yourself, and what's your perspective on that now in comparison to then?
Well, the truth of the matter is that you become a product of your environment, right? Like you're around certain things all the time; they become normal. I'll go into the 80s and 90s where the movies were crazy violent, right? Yeah. And then we're all kind of hardened to that. And now I look at movies with my kids, I'm, oh my God, you can't watch that. And but we were there, we were immersed in that. Like if the more bullets, the better. Scarface, right?
Yeah, yeah.
That was our generation. I think what's helped me tremendously is I kind of found what I'm good at, and I focus on that. And, you know, like, you can use it for business, be like, what are you good? How do you make money, right? So this is how I make money. So let me focus on that. And the peripheral, like, I wanted to do marketing. The reason I wanted to do marketing was because I had so many years where I was doing transactions for people, and people knew my name but never knew my face. They're like, oh, you're Omar, you did that crazy deal. Da, da, da. I'm like, yeah, that was me. She's like, wow. Had I known this was you, I would have referred this to you. So I was like, how do I get my face out there without taking my eye off the ball of what I'm good at?
Right.
So that's why I ended up doing marketing, because I'm like, I want people to know what I am, but I'm not going to be out there. I don't have, like, that's not what I'm good at. What I'm really good at is structuring a deal. I know how to look at a deal from 80 different angles and be like, all right, let's bulletproof it. Fix this, do that, and switch it around so that the bank says yes. And I'm really good, you know, with relationships. I'm really easy to speak to, and I think I have a high emotional IQ where I can understand what the client really needs. And if you retain me, I'm with you.
Right.
So I think that's the big thing people resonate with. They're like, yo, Omar, like, you know, other people can tell them, oh, I want to do this for you, and they're like, no, I'm going to go Omar. And I might not even know what the hell you're talking about, but because they know the amount of loyalty and tenacity I bring to it, they resonate with it. They want to feel like somebody's really got their back at the end of the day.
Does structuring a deal put you in like a flow state? Do you feel like you're kind of like operating on a different frequency than like just say
structuring a deal is almost like looking at the Matrix for some people, where it doesn't make sense for other people.
Sure.
But because I kind of know what the bank wants.
What does that do? For, like, what is it like? Mathematic aspect of it is like the puzzle aspect of like what aspect of structuring a deal do you find to be so like? Because to me that sounds boring as fuck.
Right.
Like, with all due respect.
Well,
like I've worked in finance and I've done some of that world in the car business, and I understand the idea of structuring a deal, but to me it's just like that doesn't.
Well, the personal vendetta comes from this. In 2000, I decided I wanted to buy a house, right? Because my wife was pregnant at the time. My now 16-year-old. So no, I'm sorry, 2003. So I go to the bank. I was the liquor store and the club, so I had like cash going through. I had money for a down payment, and I go to the bank, and I'm like, hey, I want to buy a house. Everybody was buying a house in 03. Anybody who was above 18 could buy a house, right? You didn't have to be legally here.
Right.
And lady whips out the book, sits me down. She's like, hey, have a seat. I sit down. I'm like, okay. She goes, well, what do you make? I was like, well, I make this on paper, and this is what I show. You see my bank statements. She flips pages, and she asked me another question. She looks at me, concerned. He flips pages. And after she flipped through a fucking book, she tells me, I can't help you. So my wife is pregnant. I had to make a move. So I called that cousin I told you about who got me recruited. I said, yo, I got to buy the house. Everybody and their mother can get a loan. Get me somebody. So he goes, yo, I got you. He calls the guy from Bank of America, whatever. He calls me up. We get the approval letter. I found the house. Boom, boom, boom. We're in the house.
It's a process.
Right. It's a process, but it's who you know.
Of course.
That helps you. So my pleasure is always sticking it to the bank because if my client retains me, I'm 100% for them. So I'm like, this is how we have to figure it out. So I think that's what really, really inspires me to help somebody like, yo, man, I got you. Because I was there, and I'm still angry about it 20 years later.
Yeah.
Yeah, because it's not true. You know what I'm saying? Maybe it was true to you, but it's not true. So I think that's what really was a turning point for me to really get focused on real estate because how many people get told no, right? And if your why is strong enough, you find a way. Yeah. And that's what I did, and that's what I do for my clients.
Are you familiar with the Ikigai?
No. Really.
It's not something you order. It's a Japanese purpose circle.
Okay.
And essentially it's 4 circles, and in the middle they all overlap.
Okay.
And what you do is you fill it out based off of what you like to do, what you're good at, what you get paid for, and what the world needs.
Right.
And where they all start to overlap, then it overlaps into like passion and blah, 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 blah. And then you're able to kind of find your Ikigai by filling out this Japanese purpose circle.
Okay.
So I wonder what your Ikigai would look like. Because
Google that and fill one out.
Google one.
Figure it out. Yeah.
Google it. I should just have printouts. It's just
fill this out right now.
Fill this out right now. Let's and I'll flip through it. I think you need to have that moment though, right? You need to have that moment where you're like, the fuck, man.
Yeah,
and
fuck
that moment kind of creates itself over and over again for different people, for different reasons, for different things, and that can be a detriment and completely throw you off. or that could be a motivator, and that could be what does lead you to the next thing and to being successful and having, a wife who's pregnant. And you're like, what the fuck, man? Like,
Gotta happen.
I have to figure this out. There's no other option
the
right
motivation.
now.
And I think that different people get motivated for different things, but I feel like my family and like people look at the world as like this huge thing, and I tell my kids this all the time. You have to take the first step. So I try to take that fear out of people. I'm like, yo, man, all right, you do, my credit, find out what your score is and then build. Like, don't, I'll never, all right, hold on. Let's take a look. So, because once it becomes real, once you kind of know where you're standing,
sure,
you can move forward.
Yes.
But people don't want to find out most of the time. I think that's what leaves people stuck.
1,000%. Yeah. And I see that even in the coaching world, where people have for me, it boils down to four things. It's awareness, accountability, discipline, and ultimately freedom. Okay. And people step into the awareness. I think we all have these moments where, like, you have this awareness come to you, right? And it's either going to be like a gentle tap on the shoulder, or it's going to be a 2x4 to the back of the head.
Right.
But if you want to call it God, source, higher self, the universe, whatever you want to call it, it's going to make itself known throughout you. In some way, shape, or form, it's going to find a home in you, whether it's cancer, an ulcer, an expression, an artistic, whatever. It's going to find a way to manifest in you.
Right.
And I think that people have that awareness moment, and it's to your point, fear is what makes them recoil back and be like, well, I can't fucking do this.
Right.
I can't do this. And it's a fear of the unknown, which is where, untapped potential and possibility is. Right. And that's the reality of it. There is a fear, but you have to face that fear and step into it.
I think if your necessity or need outweighs your fear, you unlock a level in yourself.
Yeah.
Like, I'll give you a really, really funny example. Like, when I was a kid, definitely afraid of the dark. Like, shit your pants afraid of the dark.
So you should not try sensory deprivation.
No. Now,
I'm joking.
So the biggest thing was, like, when I heard my first son, I was like, yo, man, if there's anything in the dark that could hurt anybody, then, I got to be ready, because I got somebody I take care of.
Yeah.
And my need outweighed my fear.
Sure.
So now I can walk anywhere. I don't care, because I'd rather take it than anybody else behind me and my family. So
of course.
I think when people, like, the whole thing with the house, like, it had to happen.
It wasn't an option.
The why wasn't important. I mean, sorry, the how wasn't, it was going to happen.
Right.
So it just took me how to find, like, I had to unlock some stuff to make it happen.
And that's a mindset, right? And
right.
that becomes like, and maybe that's also like, it ties into creating that matrix thought for you when you're creating the deal.
The deal, exactly.
It's the okay, this has to happen.
Right.
And when it comes to mortgage lending or any really like that's a micro of the macro, right? That's just a manifestation of a bigger picture.
It's a vehicle.
Exactly.
Right.
The micro of it is this has to happen, and then the what I find interesting is like the puzzle now, right? Like now it's like, and then once you step into that space, like you are now, and it starts flowing. Now, to me, it becomes this untapped potential of possibility, and almost anything's possible.
Right.
And especially when it comes to the mortgage aspect of things, being the vehicle of the macro, it's a really funky world, right? It's
ever changing.
Yeah,
it's ever changing. It's so totally fluid, and if you're not educated, like every day, you could lose. You could lose the game.
So what do you do to keep yourself not only just, educated and up to date on the mortgage aspect, but what do you do? Like, what is your ritual? We know each other through CrossFit, which has been a life lesson for me in a multitude of ways, looking back on it at the time. But what are some things you do in your own practice, like your own rituals, your own routines, that creates your lifestyle?
Well, I meditate and stretch in the morning to center me out. Then I destroy myself in a CrossFit workout with my wife.
Beautiful, yeah.
And then I get to work, and I work until it's over. But I'm subscribed to every government, like anything to do with lending. I have an email, and I process information very quickly. Maybe that's due to education, maybe it's due to discipline, but I'm able to process and implement very quickly. And because I'm in motion with so many transactions, they automatically apply. It almost like fills in and like, the green light, bing, 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 oh, this is going to affect this. Work on this right now. And, but it's just about processing information. You have to be actively, intentfully processing information. You can't just sit there and be like, oh, yeah, that's nice. It just won't work. Yeah, it just won't work.
Great.
It just won't work. Because finances are all sentiment.
Right.
Right? Like when COVID hit, the bank shut down. March 29th, the bank shut down. I had deals on the board ready to close. They were like, we don't have anybody to buy these loans. and then you have to pivot. You have to be like, all right, so what is moving right now? Anything government-backed? All right, so let's focus our energy on those transactions because that's the way we're going to make money, and that's how we can help people. Because if you can't close a deal, that's all they care about. They want to, they need to know, and they need to know that their professional is on point with that.
And that's a big part of it is the idea that people, they're trusting in you to guide them through this process, which is overwhelming, right? It's daunting.
Right.
It's like, to your point, there's a sense of fear of, am I going to get bought? My house is going to look? Where's the house? Blah, 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 blah.
Everybody's afraid of getting rejected,
Yeah.
right? Like denied. And then I had a thought real quick. What people tend to not, when they don't understand something fully, it just seems to become so far away. And what they should do, what I've learned through personal practice, is you set milestone goals to your large goal, and as your milestones get hit, your belief levels they kick up, your frequency kicks up, and now everything's closer, and now everything's more possible. And now you you reinvigorate yourself. Sure. And now, so if you went at speed 1, you're at speed 2, you're at speed 3. And if you learn how to, work with yourself, if you're self-aware of yourself, of how to trigger yourself and how to motivate yourself, sky's the limit.
Yeah, I want to go back to the meditating. How important do you find, because I meditate every morning.
Okay.
And if I miss it for whatever reason, I'm finding a way to get it in
anyway,
the day. Some way, shape, or form. I need that stillness. What does your meditation practice look like, and how important has that become?
With COVID, because this became a big, what are you going to do with your time, right? Are you going to sit there and just complain about shit, or are you going to figure out how to best use your time now?
Sure.
So it became super important. I do the Ramwad, which is to me meditation and stretching.
Sure.
And our brains are like computers, right? So they're always going. You have to shut it down and give it clarity. And that means thinking about nothing, intentfully, just being in the moment. And that 30 minutes or 20 minutes or even 40 minutes, whatever the day gives me, it just, like I said, it reinvigorates. If you use that tool right, you can reset yourself, and you can reset yourself out of negativity. You can reset yourself towards whatever goal you have. You can reset yourself against something that may have happened yesterday that really fucked you up. Yeah. And just be like, you know what? Put in perspective, right? And find a better way to deal with it. And I think that's essential. It's
turning it over. It's looking at the other version of that reality.
Right.
And then when it comes to older stuff, it's just the actualization, the realization that, it's that, I always refer to it, but the scene in The Matrix when Neo gets in the elevator with Morpheus after they meet the Keymaster, and he's like, did we do something wrong? He's like, and he's like, no, it happened. It couldn't have happened any other way.
Right.
He's like, well, how do you know? He's like, because we're still alive. And then they get down to the bottom floor, and he's waiting there with the keys.
Yeah.
He's like, follow me. So it's this idea of, and we have to relinquish that, right? Because we need to be in control. And if we're holding on to the past, it's like creating this depression, right? And then we're anticipating the future, so it's causing us to feel like anxiety, and and it's overwhelming, and then we're in that, and now that becomes the mindset, and we're breathing, and then your body starts to create and represent what the mind's going through.
Absolutely. The body's reacting to the mind. The mind's always ahead of the body, right? And the body is like the world's greatest machine.
Yeah.
And people don't understand the way endorphins work and things like that, and how our minds, even subconsciously, are your belief levels have to be in certain areas for things to kick off. And if they're really not there, if you're just trying to act like it or fake it till you make it, then it's really not going to happen. Right. You got and that's why I'll go back to the whole setting smaller micro milestones, because as you accomplish those things that you never thought you'd be able to accomplish, now big things aren't so big anymore. You know, I got that. I can do. Well, fuck it, I can do that. Or, shit, I did that. Well, fuck it, I'm going over there. I'm going over there.
It's the eating an elephant, right? It's one bite at a time.
Right.
And that's something I definitely did learn from CrossFit. And if obviously I'm going to do some inner CrossFit talking lingo. But
look up all the terms, guys.
Right. So there's a particular path for an 800-meter run, right? It was like around the block. And I hate running. It's like the bane of my existence. Maybe because I wore Chuck Taylors to run. Might have not been the best decision.
Or Vans.
But I hate running. And it's something I know I should be doing, but I just don't do it. And, I would just make these small goals. I'm like, just get to the fucking fire hydrant. Just get to the fire hydrant. Okay, now just get to this post. Get to that car. Get to the Greek restaurant. Get to the firehouse.
Right.
Come back down. Just get. And once you start to chip away at that 800-meter run around the block, and it just becomes these small little points that you could see.
Digestible points.
Exactly.
Right?
I'm like, I can
Things-
get there. It's right there.
Yeah,
It's like,
yeah,
hello,
yeah.
I'm
I
going to
can
be
hit
there.
that. I
I'm
can
going to
hit
be
that.
there by the time I'm done having this thought. I'm going to be there.
Right.
But we get wrapped up in the bigger, when you sit down, and again, it's a small micro of the macro representation, but when you sit down and you read the board, it's like 800-meter run 75 times. Like, oh, God damn it, I can't do that. It's so overwhelming.
Yeah.
Is that something that you gain from CrossFit as well? Like, how does that tie in? Because obviously your wife's a coach.
Yeah. CrossFit really worked for me because I'm stubborn. I refuse to lose. So even if I don't do it or get it done, I'll be back tomorrow, and I'm going to do more than I did yesterday. It just worked really well with my competitive nature. Like, it ended up being a good match. I'm not really the perfect height for CrossFit. It's not really the sport that I should,
Right.
be a specialist in, but it really works for my personality. And it's okay because there's no losses, just learning. And if you have that attitude, you can learn a lot about yourself, and you can apply that from your physical to your mental to your business to your marriage, to anything.
Right.
If you know that it's not a loss, you're learning. If you give it attention, give it attention.
It's carrying one overall theme, I think, or like an essence of who you are throughout all of it. And I think once you come into that space of the realization of who you are, your skill sets, what you can bring to the table. And I think a bigger part of that is serving. I think when you're able to serve others, and it doesn't become about Omar, Vinny, it doesn't come about yourself, and it really does become about the other person in true, genuine fashion, right? Not like this false bullshit, not
if your intent is pure,
right? Yeah. Not fake it till you make it, right? That term is serving in one regard, right? Because the idea is just like show up and do it, right? Until you actually are doing it,
right?
But there's also the other term of live as though, like live as if you are,
right.
Which I think has the same sentiment, but doesn't have the fake it aspect. And words, words are spells.
Are powerful, man.
So powerful.
Yeah,
right?
Absolutely.
And when you say fake it, it's like, well, no, I just rather like
you started the fucking thought wrong.
Yes,
right.
Yes,
right,
exactly right.
Yeah.
You started the thought wrong, and now you're like on this trajectory of like, well, what's making it? Like, what does faking it look like? Why is it faking it? Why can't it just be living in essence of who you are?
And making it is subjective, right? It's different to everybody, right? So like, professional goals, home goals, marriage goals, everything is different for everybody. And that's what I tell everybody. Like, look, man, what I do, I love what I do, and it looks cool. But anything you do, as long as you love it, you're good, man. You're going to live your life. And a lot of people get caught up in what other people think, and it takes a little level of, I think, maturity or self-awareness.
Sure.
That really allows you to unlock. Like I use that a lot, unlocking, because I feel that a lot of people are shackled by thought. And once you become aware of it and you're able to identify it and change it, then you start unlocking yourself to your true potential.
Yeah, it's definitely an unlocking. It's definitely a it becomes like a game. It becomes like this like I said before, this untapped potential of
infinite possibility.
Infinite possibility.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I can attest to that because but it's also like a releasing, right? Like we hold on to these things, like whatever it is, ego or identity or drive or motivation. We hold on to like, I want to be this. I need to make this. And then it becomes a relationship with that thing, right? And money's a great example of that, I think, because money is a great tool, but it's only a tool.
Right.
And as a culture, we have put such a value on money that it's money's the root of all evil. It's like, it's not. It's a great tool, and money can't buy you happiness. Like, no, but it's a great tool. Like, that's the wording that we should be. It's a great tool.
Right.
It is a tool. And your relationship with those things transcends, right? It bobs and weaves, it shifts. And when you're able to relinquish that control and be like, all right, I'm just going to let it flow the way it's supposed to, in harmony and whatever it's supposed to look like, I'm going to let it be. That's when things start to unfold for you.
That's the level of consciousness you're talking about right now, awareness that a lot of people don't have. The guys that may not have a lot of money or live in subsidized housing but have to have the BMW outside. It's because they want to touch that feeling of luxury, of validation, that they're, maybe they'll never be able to buy the $1 million mansion, but hey, man, I got this Gucci belt. But that's such a big conversation that people don't understand. And now with the internet and all that, people are, I believe, if you look at it the right way, you can identify certain things, but you have to have a level of consciousness to that. I think people should be focusing more on their levels of consciousness than the thing right in front of them sometimes. What you're looking at is usually a reflection of your thoughts and your all your experiences. So look at your experiences before you look at that, or look at somebody else.
Sure. Well, it's a reflection of yourself, right? The other person is just another version of you walking around.
Right.
And when you can have that actualization, the realization that there isn't a difference. There is no difference. It's just you're in a different meat suit than I'm in. You know what I mean?
We're all people.
Exactly. And when you can kind of get to the subatomical particle aspect of that, whether it be consciousness or, whatever it is, when you can get deeper than that and have that realization, it's there is a level of consciousness that we as a culture don't promote. I think
it's a race.
Yeah, exactly. That we don't promote, but I think it's coming around a little bit. I think there is a collective consciousness that is bringing conversations like this to the forefront. That is, the awareness and stepping away from, that Gucci belt and a BMW, but can't put gas in the car. You know what I mean? And that's a cultural thing, but it's a shift that I think is so important. Mm-hmm. And I think COVID really shines some light on that.
I was about to say that I think that this pandemic has really opened up a lot of portals, right? As much as, it changed the lifestyle, it opened up new ways to communicate. It also, the internet changed the game with getting your ideas out.
Sure.
There's no filter now. So, that's good and bad, right? Because you don't really know what our great ideas or what not great ideas are, but you'll hear them.
Right.
And the gatekeepers of the past, when I was young, right? So when I was 20, 21, I would try to model. And, I went and I dropped, I was 190. And
you are very handsome.
Thanks, man.
And you have great teeth.
Appreciate that. And so, then I would go and they'd be like, oh, you have to drop more weight. And I'm like, yo, I'm 6'3". What do you want me to be, 150? Yeah, I'm going to die.
Right.
So finally, no, I can't do this.
Yeah.
But the subjectivity,
right.
What if I was that other guy that says, yo, I have to do this, and then I start throwing up stuff, being bulimic, and, think about that. If I wasn't self-aware, I could have been one of those guys, those crazy, those crazy stories.
Sure.
And I look at that, I look at my own stories a lot because, I have boys now, and I try to help them. I tell them all the time, I'm here to help guide you and help you not make as many mistakes as I made. You're going to make some. I can't protect you from everything, but I'll give you some stories, and maybe if anything sounds like that, you kind of know the answer already, help accelerate you a little bit.
I think that's a really key element for me personally, has been, becoming a parent. I have a 5-year-old and a 1.5-year-old son. My 5-year-old's a girl.
Just FYI, I'm 24, 19, and 16.
24, 19, and 16.
I'm a little ahead of you.
Yeah. Couple weeks.
Couple years.
But revisiting life through their eyes, I kind of talk about that kind of often. But, when you get to see the wonder in their eyes with first experiences when they're younger and then kind of going through their own journey, and I think as a culture, we've lost that, a lot of indigenous cultures, a lot of cultures outside the United States, they honor and uphold the elders of the tribe, and just for that sake alone of I'm not going to tell you. That's why the term life coach for me it doesn't resonate. People are like, oh no, you have to own that you're a life coach. I'm like, I get it, but I reframed as journeyman for hire. I'm not here to be your best friend. I'm not here to help you how to live life. I'm not going to tell you how to live life.
So
I'm here to walk with you.
Is your function in that capacity?
So I look at it as the typical hero's journey, the Joseph Campbell's hero's journey, the idea that you go out in the world, you get the awareness, and then you go out in the world, you get knocked around. You have to go into the cave and face the dragon or face the thing, and that's where you learn the lesson. And then you go back. It's your responsibility, your privilege to go back and share that with your tribe. And my function in that role is being there. When you walk out of that cave and you're fucked up and you're like, oh man, I whatever it is, whatever that cave is,
I can do this. Yeah,
right.
Yeah.
It's being out there and being like, have some honey wine, sharpen your sword, let's get some snacks.
Go back in.
We got more.
Yeah,
it's either the same cave again or we're going to the next one. And, it's that impending doom feeling, where people, need, in my opinion, just that person that's like, let's roll. Like, let's roll. I got you. Like, I'm not here to judge you.
Right.
I'm not here to ridicule you. I'm not here to motivate you. I'm just here.
An objective opinion.
I'm just here. And we could cry, we could laugh, whatever you need. I'm here.
Right.
And that's what just resonated with me. But I think that a lot of people are afraid to even like step onto that fucking gravel road.
That platform awareness, like to even start their journey.
Yeah. That's one thing I'm coming across in a lot of consultations. People have the awareness, and all of a sudden the false narrative or the default mode network kicks into their brain, and all the dopamine and the serotonin wears off after the moment, and it's like, no, this is who I am, and then you identify in those neurological pathways of this is who I am, I'm depressed, I'm anxious, I can't be helped. Well, you're not going to be helped if you keep on saying I can't be helped.
People don't understand that the true belief of what you are will guide you to who you will become. People don't understand that yet. You hear the 10 years in the making overnight sensation.
Sure.
That's all the time. But people don't really understand that, and I hear myself telling my boys that a lot lately. It's your real belief which will forge. You'll come out and become that person. But you have to understand who you want to be.
Yeah.
And when you're talking to people, the reason they're talking to you is because they don't like where they are, who they are.
Sure.
But they're not willing to put the work in to change it.
Right.
It's always easier to go back to your routine.
Comfort.
Let's go back. I want to ask you a question. So
Sure.
You said the difference between routine and ritual.
Yeah.
Deep dive for that.
Sure.
I want people to know what that means.
So for me, I think a routine, I could just put it in my own world. So my routine started as I'd wake up, I would do my yoga, I'd do my breathing, and I'd do my meditating, right? And that would just put me, and then I'd go outside with my kids, and we say good morning to the day. We say good morning to the clouds and the birds and the trees and the grass, and we, breathe in the air. We do some sun gazing if it's sunny. And that was like a routine.
Okay.
And I think where it shifts is a routine is important, but is somewhat breakable.
Okay.
And when you shift from a routine to a ritual, there's this intrinsic energy and essence into it being a ritual. It's no longer this thing that could be broken. You could adapt it, you could change it, but in its essence, it's still the same thing. So there's a thing called ritual plasticity, right?
Okay.
So it's the idea that your brain seeks novelty. Your brain likes new things, right? That's why CrossFit workouts are great,
Stimulus,
right? It's
Stimulus.
like this new thing that you're going to do. So what happens is we get like complacent in ourselves, and it's like, okay, look, you do the same 5 yoga videos, the hips, the stretch, the back, the core, and your body and your brain get bored with it. So it doesn't resonate the same way it did in the beginning. So it's the idea that the routine is, you could fall off a routine.
Okay.
I don't think you could fall off of a ritual. And even if I don't show up to do that specific thing that day, the ritual's still in place. It's just on hold.
You can go back to it. Yeah.
It's just on hold for that day for whatever reason. I overslept or whatever. Whatever it is. I think the routine could be broken and doesn't have the same essence as a ritual.
Doesn't have the same commitment.
Yeah.
Right.
Like
Commit to
a ritual is a lifestyle.
Right.
It's part of who you are. A routine is like this. It's like a first step to it becoming a ritual, in my opinion.
So routines can become rituals.
Routines do become rituals, and then rituals become your lifestyle.
Right. Routines become rituals. I like that. I like that a lot. So you've been getting a lot of, obviously, you talk about the world. You talk about routines. Do you find a lot of spirituality? Right, that's what I'm starting.
Yeah, for sure.
Right, and how's that feedback been? Do people? I mean, I feel that people are always looking like they're missing something.
Sure.
So I think this will really resonate with people.
Sure. With spirituality, it's just. I think my underlying spirituality is that it's just we're all the same. We're all just connected, and we just have these different pockets of thought or belief or whatever it is, and. Yeah, I think there's an underlining, as conscious beings, we have this underlying thought of what else? And then once you fill those hierarchy of needs, right? You have a roof over your head, your belly's full, once those hierarchy of needs, that triangle is all filled up, then it becomes like, now what?
Right.
You know, and either you stay in that triangle and you try to up the need, right? I want a bigger house, a better car, better dinners, better food,
Right.
which is great. But is that really what it boils down to? Is it just this perpetual cycle of more and more and more and more?
Right.
And what I've just learned through my own experiences of reading and you know, whether it be podcasts I listen to or YouTube seminars or whatever it is, that's serving, right? Those are good. There's nothing wrong with wanting a nice car, a beautiful house, or a really expensive steak dinner. There's nothing wrong with that. But when you identify in those things, and those things are the motivation behind you, that's when it becomes a toxic relationship.
And you find yourself empty once you hit a goal. Like,
Yeah.
where do you start? You know,
Yeah.
you have to have a higher calling.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think then it becomes, you know, the idea of you know, conscious hierarchy of needs. You know, it starts with you know, being unconsciously incompetent, you know, and just kind of like we were discussing, kind of just walking through life, you know, and that's just the opposite end of that triangle. Right now it just goes up, funnels upwards, and then it elevates to consciously competent. And that's when you become a game changer. It becomes a game changer in the sense that you can have the ability to change and manipulate time and energy, and you become almost like an alchemist, you know, and it was to your point, you said, you know, people, you say to your sons, like, it's that inner thing that drives you, that will always drive you. And that's one thing I learned from reading that book, The Alchemist, and the line I extracted from that, you know, I try to extract one thing out of every book, and that was the thing, or multiple, but if I get one, it's great.
You won.
The one thing I extracted from The Alchemist was, you know, he says to the Alchemist, like, thank you. Like, he goes on this journey, meets the Alchemist, whatever, and he thanks him. He's like, I only invoked what you already knew. We lose ourselves, you know, somewhere after the age of 7. That's where we're in the theta brainwave state from the ages of 2 to 7. We start to get programmed by culture, by society, by our parents, by our friends. And I talked about this recently on an Instagram Live I did with Dr. Chris Lee. And, you know, I remember being 10 or 11, somewhere in that world, and I was still, like, playing with action figures.
Right.
And my friend at the time, who, you know, just not through any type of circumstance, just, you know, time, you know, changes the path of people. He was like, oh, you still play with toys? And I was in this weird position where I need to, like, stand by who I am as a kid.
Justify yourself?
Right, yeah. I had to justify, like, who I am in essence. And I had to be like, oh, like, no, I don't play with toys. And meanwhile, now I have a fucking Darth Vader alarm clock. There's a Boba Fett helmet over here. And you lose a part of who you are in essence, you know, to adapt to society. And once you can come back to that fully, and you step into that space and you start receiving that more, it becomes completely different. Like, life becomes completely different.
Yeah, I mean, you wake up, you know, you're born, in your early years, you don't know who you are,
Yeah.
right? So you're like water, like Bruce Lee says, right?
Yeah.
You're like water, and you're just trying to fill in whatever's in front of you. And I think that's really important because, I mean, without going into society where you know, the youth is subjective, right? Whether 5 or 25, to me, they're still kids.
Sure.
You know, they need a true North Star.
Sure.
Right? And whatever else they want to do is all right, but if they have the right base or the right frame or the right foundation, whatever
Sure.
you want to use, whatever analogy you want to use, the rest, the way it grows, is fine.
Right.
The way it grows is fine. But, yeah, like, and that was just an interaction with somebody. But, you know, kids have interactions like that all the time.
Right.
And those kids are they're only repeating something else they heard from somewhere else.
Right.
They don't have, like, original thought.
Right.
They're too young yet.
Right.
They haven't formed an opinion.
Right.
And that's the game, or that's the thing I think we're addressing in this podcast today, because I think there's a huge void, the state of anxiety, depression, mental awareness right now.
Oh, yeah.
It's just bananas to me, like wow. And I think it's just because I was having a conversation with JC earlier where a lot of the distractions are gone right now. A lot of the outer stimulus, the sports, the this, the that. I mean, besides our president, which is always funny to look at, you know, there's
Right.
time to really look.
Sure.
And things are becoming uncovered. And at least people are being honest about it, where they're like, yo, I do need help, I think, you know?
Well, it's there's nowhere to run.
Right.
There's nowhere to hide. There's, you're in a vacuum of existence right now. And what is that actually like? Are you happy in your vacuum?
Right.
And then you're forced to face your realities, the realities that you created, maybe consciously or subconsciously. And so many. When you hear that there's a drought in Zoloft right now, right? That's a fucking problem.
Yeah.
Right. To get Zoloft, you need a rain check right now.
Right.
Like that's scary.
Yeah.
Like that's scary.
Everybody's going for it.
Right? That's the quick fix that we look for. That's the culture.
But that's the American culture.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that, but that's human mind. Like we all want the path of least resistance,
Right, we want
right?
quick-
of course.
how do we
Like,
fix it fast?
Right. Like, why don't I have a 6-pack after going to CrossFit for 1 month? It's like, well, you still fucking eat bonbons at night, so that's not going to happen.
There's no magic pill.
Right? There is no magic pill. And when what this pandemic has created is exactly to your point, is that people are now in a space where you're almost forced to face yourself, and now you ask yourself, well, what am I going to do with this opportunity? Mm-hmm. And if you have a mindset, we could say, well, I could do anything with this. Like now I have unlimited time. I saw this great meme, and it was like, if after all of this you're still where you started, then time was never your issue. Right. And that's the truth. Yeah. That's the reality. But we dump it. We're a very busy culture, but we're busy doing what? Mm-hmm. Right? When you could step into
or
that.
productive, which are you really right now?
Right. Great point.
Right.
Because
people say, "Oh, I'm really busy." Are you? I mean, look, my kids be like, "Oh, I know you're busy." I'm like, "Yo, I make time."
Right.
That's a big statement I always use. I make the time. It's not. I don't like. I'm not. I wish I had the lifestyle. I could just be sitting home watching. Whatever. You can't watch.
Would
anything.
you?
What?
Would
watching?
you really want that lifestyle?
No, I'd probably drive myself crazy. So,
I wouldn't want that.
Yeah.
A part of me, like I always like, and that, again, that's like an old thought process. Where like, man, I wish I could just sit and fucking play Call of Duty again for 14 hours. And then the other part was like, really?
That time has passed.
Like, you really want to do that? And then I'm like, no, I guess I like waking. Like I was telling my wife all the time, I like waking up at 4 a.m. Yeah. I like it. Yeah. Like I like getting out of bed at 4 a.m. and doing yoga and breath work and meditating and being immersed in books and podcasts and ways of thinking and psychology and philosophy. I love it. Like I have a thirst for knowledge that can't be quenched when it comes to that world. Like I could just sit in front of YouTube and watch Alan Watts wax on poetically about things, and I'm just like, oh yeah, this is great. Right. So I go back there too. Is that like the default mode where I'm like, I wish I could just play video games and eat pizza. Right. But then I think intrinsically I know that that's not serving.
Yeah, that was serving when you were like 10 for a little while.
Or 25. 10. 25, dude.
When you were younger. Let's say younger.
But it served me, right? At the time, like it's where I was conscientiously, right? And now you grow and you hope that you can outgrow that mindset. But how many people don't? How many people stay there?
Stay stuck.
And that's the thing, right? You become adult bodies with child mentality.
Well, there's no forced evolution, right? People tend to evolve. Like I was telling my son this the other day. I talk to him a lot because they haven't nobody else to talk to, really. So I'm like, listen, man, the friends that you had when you were 10 may not be the friends you have when you're 17, when you're 25, when you're 35. I was like, some of your friends, you'll have your whole life because they also have evolved. I said, understand that because he was your friend then and you don't kind of like have the same things in common anymore, it's okay to change.
Right.
Don't feel guilty about that. Because he's like, yeah, I don't want to do that anymore. Like, all right, well, then you don't.
Then don't do that shit.
Then you're going somewhere else. Right. And that's fine. But
that's great.
People don't understand that because there's so much guilt. There's this overriding guilt in society, like for anything. Like, oh, I don't want to do. Oh, I feel so bad about that.
Yeah.
Or, but you gotta live your truth. Live your truth. Do what you can to the best of your ability, and know that that's enough. Because somebody like my personality, like I don't have any limits, so I'm like, oh, I could do more. I could do more. Yeah, but this is a marathon. Yeah. Right. I gotta live my life for as long as I can live it. Right. And if you go so hard one way, other things suffer, right? So like you said, do I have a lot of time? No, because, I have my business. I have working on the business. I'm working in the business. I'm working with the clients. I'm working on my marriage. I'm working on my kids. I'm working, I take care of my mother. I'm always working on them.
Sure.
So and it's forever, and people have to embrace that. Yeah. They have to embrace that.
It's one thing I got very early on, and like when I started floating, was like this idea of like staircases and landings, right? Okay. It's like some staircases are steeper, some stairs are wider, some stairs are narrower, right? But there's always some have more steps than others,
Right.
but there's always steps to climb, and then you hit a landing, and you get to enjoy that landing for 3 seconds. Enjoy it. Bass keep on fucking walking up more stairs, and it never ends. And when you realize that there is no end, right? There is no like, and again, culturally, and it's not to blame it on the culture. It's just the reality of it. We have this mindset of like, I'm going to hit 65, I'm going to retire and go to Florida. It's like, okay,
You think so?
and then you're going to live like. So
Right.
what did you do for 65 years before that? Like,
Right.
what were you doing? Just existing.
Yeah, what happens if you have a life event before you hit 65?
Right.
Now what?
Right.
I had that situation happen to my mother. My mother was always, I'm going to retire. She has a stroke, and, now she lives a different existence. And I just tell her, listen, man, I said, look, it slowed you down. Enjoy it. Enjoy it. You got your grandkids. Enjoy it. You weren't doing this before. Maybe it's time to just live for this.
Right.
And, unfortunately, sometimes a life event forces you to look at things differently. And her having it also forced me
Sure.
to say, hey, man, business is great. Making $1 million is great. But I also am responsible
Right.
for being a good husband and for being a father. And, whatever happens with them is somehow related to what I'm giving them.
Yeah.
So, make sure you're present for that.
Yeah, and it's about filling up your own cup first, right?
Right.
Doing the things that you need to be doing intrinsically to, fill that soul, right? And, that's pouring from a full cup, right? That's the old expression. And especially with like clients and consultations, you sit across from people and you could see, I could see it, and some have said it's like, my soul died. And that's a fucking jarring thing to see people say.
Right.
And they're just like, yeah, my soul died a long time ago. And you're like, wow.
Do you do consultations in person or on Zoom?
I do them some in person and then some over the phone, just based off of everyone's comfort level with things. But when you could do it across from someone, you could look into their eyes and they express that sentiment to you. And you could see like, oh, they're not to sound fucking crass, but they're dead inside,
Right.
And then you just have to like relight that, just that spark.
That
like,
ember,
all right,
you gotta make it a fire.
And that's okay. Like it's okay, like that. That's okay.
Yeah.
And you have to, just buckle up.
Tell me about this deprivation tank stuff.
Yeah.
Let me hear about that.
Oh, it's wonderful. So it's
So you go into a tank.
you go into a large bathtub or a pod. It's just a matter of your.
A pod
comfort.
has a cover, right?
Yep, it has like it looks like an egg.
Okay.
And it's filled with 1,000 pounds of Epsom salt.
Okay.
Okay.
So
and,
you're definitely going to float because there's a lot of salt.
oh, it's denser than the Dead Sea.
Okay.
So you're gonna float.
Yeah.
And it's void of sight, so you could turn off the lights. I always recommend people do, so it's fully dark. And you're immersed in the water up until like your face. So you want to frame your face
Wow.
with the water. So and you put in earplugs, and you can't hear anything, can't see anything because the room is. I mean, if you close your eyes in your bedroom at night, it's darker than that. Like
Crazy.
it's fucking wild.
Right.
And then the water is ideally at 98.6 degrees, so you can't feel anything either. So they say it's like the closest thing to being back in your mother's womb.
Okay.
Like you're in a vacuum. And my big thing when I first did it, I heard about it on Joe Rogan, and then when I was younger, I heard about it on the Simpsons. Did an episode on it,
Right.
and then there was a movie called Altered States from like the 80s? It might be the 80s. I saw that when I was younger, so I always knew about it. It was always like in my frame of reference. And then I thought to myself one day, I was like, I want to try this. And then I thought immediately afterwards, I'm afraid of what I'm going to think. And then immediately after that, I thought, well, that's scarier than anything you're actually going to think. And I think so many people are afraid it's to our point, they're afraid to step into that space of themselves. And that's what it really did for me. It gave me this really hyper-focused perspective of the narrative that I'm giving myself and the perspective I'm giving myself. And there's tons of Epsom salt, so it's great for magnesium, and it's great to 74% of people are magnesium deficient.
Okay.
So it's really good for your body and muscle relaxing, and it's relaxing in general.
So you're in the tank. You lay there.
Yep, you
right?
lay back.
For
yep.
how long?
An hour is like the standard time. I've done an hour and a half.
So an hour.
Yep.
And what is the goal while you're in the pod?
So the goal is it really depends.
Yeah, because I'm like, all right.
It so depends on the person. So you reach theta brainwave states, which is where children operate from the ages of 2 to 7.
Okay.
So you're you're almost pure consciousness and essence, right?
Okay.
So that's achieved at like depending on your outside practice, but anywhere between 20 to 40 minutes,
Okay.
right? So all of a sudden, like all the dust of your mind settles, and then all of a sudden, like this one narrative comes through. In my experience,
Right.
this one narrative kind of comes through, and you're able to look at things, whatever it is.
What was your narrative? Do you mind?
No, I don't. Finding my own voice and facing myself. It wasn't like an overall narrative. It was super granular, but it was like the narrative of the self. Like where do I need to make changes? How do I make these changes? Do I even need to make any of these changes? And it became like this you become hyper focused and clear on life, you know? And this is just my own experience. So it might be very different for other people.
Yeah.
Absolutely. But it became this thing where I walked out, I was like, I'm a different person now. Like my brain thinks differently, you know? And the best way I could put it was I was able to like compartmentalize, I can never say that word, my thoughts and put them in like little boxes and put them in like little storage containers. And then it became like in a Rubik's Cube or like, you know, like a rubber band ball, just untangling this ball of your thoughts and your emotions and your feelings and everything that we are constantly, even just sitting here, like our bodies are being stimulated. It's fucking hot as balls in here, right? Like
That's what I'm doing.
you can open the door if you want, like whatever is easier, man. If that helps the lighting or whatever. But you know, it's just like we're constantly stimulated. When you remove all that, and now you're in like again a vacuum of existence.
You're by yourself.
There's nowhere to go.
Yeah.
There's nowhere to fucking go.
That's pretty cool. I think
You should try it.
I think I will.
You dig it.
I think I'll
Come
try
up, bring the film crew. We'll
Yeah,
film
right.
it.
They'll be in the ball.
They'll be in the tank with you. Like, turn off the fucking lights. Yeah, there's no lights. What are you consuming now? Like, what's on your Internet Explorer? What are you reading? What are you listening to?
I'm reading right now Shoe Dog, Phil Knight's story.
Okay.
Yeah. Last book I read was Danny Morell wrote it. I like him. He's something road. It's like it's all self-development stuff.
Yeah.
I'm reading that. Before that I was reading the work of leaders.
Sure.
Which I loved.
Yeah.
I loved it. And the one thing I got out of the book, because you mentioned it, was that it's vision, alignment, and execution.
Perfect.
Champion execution. So I found in my business, alignment was what I had to work on. When you're working with more than one person,
Sure.
alignment is a constant thing. And you know, like I've spoken to some of my friends, they're like, yeah, but it's fucking exhausting. I'm like, yeah, but that's the game, right? Like if you want to lead, that has to be part of it.
I think it's only exhausting for like, to me, like for X amount of time. Like it's always exhausting.
Right.
But then once you like embrace it and realize like I'm in it.
Well, after reading the book, I'm like, I understood that this is, if I want to be this is part of it.
Right.
So my relationship with the alignment changed.
Yes,
And
that's
that
key.
was a big light bulb moment for myself. Because
Yeah.
I'm like, why don't they fucking know this already? And I'm
Right.
like, well, not everybody sees the whole macro like you do. So
Yeah.
maybe you share your vision more, and then you explain, align them, be like, look, without this can't happen.
Right.
And when they do execute, you champion them. And I put that into implementation, and that worked out tremendously. It worked out really well for me, and I use that for life.
Yeah.
I use that because alignment in your marriage,
Yeah.
alignment with your kids.
Yeah.
I mean, how many? Like, I have a really good relationship with my kids. I think, you know, I know friends of mine that their kids don't talk to them. Like
Yeah.
they're like, you know, like it's weird.
Sure.
So, yeah, like I take those things and I try to spread it across the whole board.
Yeah.
And that's what I've been doing. But yeah, Shoe Dog by Phil Knight is something I wanted to read because and I'm using this as a stair to my next landing, where you know Phil Knight had a big visionary, philosophical approach to shoe branding, and that is what allowed him to explode and become the juggernaut that they are now. Now they're nothing like what they first started.
Sure.
But even now with the Colin Kaepernick endorsements and stuff like that, he still kind of stays true to his vision.
Sure.
And I like that. And, you know, to hear somebody who's done it on such a higher level may spark something else in me
Sure.
that may help me level up.
I think that that's a really underlining constant thread that goes throughout people, right? Is this, you could say philosophical, spiritual, religious, whatever it is, but this underlining theme that I'm finding with all great thinkers or philosophers or whatever it is, psychologists, there's this thread that just goes throughout life, through all people, through all things, and it's the expression of that thread. And when you could tap into what the thread is, whether it be a light source, an energy, whatever you want to call it, when you could extract from that thread and express that thread in your particular section of that thread, then it does become unlimited potential.
Yeah. I mean, you just have to have a true relationship with it.
Yeah.
And I think that word is important, relationship. Like, it's your relationship with anything, right? You can have the same exact thing happen to me and you, and we might have totally different perspectives on it because of our relationship with it. And sometimes, you hear this stuff all the time. Well, they can lines, but they're really true. It's not what happened, it's how you react to it. Because how many times, and I'm guilty of this too, and I work on myself all the time, where something from work may have gone wrong, and then all of a sudden I'm in a bad mood in my house with my wife, my kids, but they have nothing to do with that.
Right.
It's a discipline.
Right.
Going back to the word you compartmentalize.
Yeah, it's a hard
I got
word
you,
to
bro. I
use.
got
Yeah,
you.
thank you.
But you have to. Yeah, man, that's there. You know what? At 9 o'clock tomorrow, you deal with it.
Right.
But right now, we have these 6 hours that are not promised with your family. Yo, enjoy that. And if people can establish that discipline, and me, I'm working on it. I've gotten better with it, but I still work on it constantly, and I'm aware of it. So I think that's a big difference. Then you change yourself. You change yourself, you change the world.
Yeah.
And this is how all these concepts kind of intertwine with me. This is how I kind of interpret them in my relationship with them.
Sure.
So
I love the reacting versus. I'm a big proponent of like the thought of reaction versus response. And being able to respond to life rather than react to it.
Right.
And I love the moments where you fuck up. We went away and I had this big reaction. I got frustrated. Blah 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 blah. Long story short, and then I had this perspective. Where I finally removed myself, I was like, well, what was that about? What was
it really about?
Yeah, what was it really about?
Yeah.
It was about holding on and trying to recreate the experience of the first time we went on this trip. And once I was able to let go of that, it became a much better trip.
You know how they say you carry luggage with you, baggage?
Yeah.
You got to leave your baggage at the door.
Yeah.
And that's in everything.
Yeah.
That's in everything.
Yeah, but we take it when it comes to those terms and stuff like that, those theories, those memes you read. We're like, oh, yeah, you carry baggage for sure. But we don't realize that that baggage could be just a summer vacation with your family. Mm-hmm. And, the previous one being excellent and meditating on the beach and the sunrise. And then this one, not so much. But they both have their merit, right? It's a yin and a yang. It's a balance. You had the great spiritual experience of the first one. Now this is not going to be that. And you have to accept that.
Embrace it.
Embrace that.
Yeah.
And when you can learn to have perspective and respond to life over react to life, to me, that's become a superpower.
You change the game. Yeah, you change the game. And, without going too deep into it, but,
you go as deep as you want, buddy.
You bring into,
I'll put on my Boba Fett helmet. We'll fucking get deep right now.
We bring in finances. You bring in people's lifestyles and cultures and what they've seen, what their parents have seen, what their grandparents have seen. And, all that stuff, it becomes harder for them to respond.
Sure.
But they have to develop that consciousness. I think if everybody did that, if instead of they pointed at somebody else and said, he's the reason, and they say, I'm the reason, how do I fix that? I think that would change the world. And I think that's what we're missing right now.
Yeah, it's the recognition of yourself and others. Mm-hmm. What do you have? What are your goals? What are some of your big goals that you've set for yourself? Those, if you can share them.
The biggest goal. My big goal. Sorry about the mic. My biggest goal is always to, I want to be able to financially impact people, right? Whether right now it's transactional, where I'm helping people get into homes or helping people adjust their businesses, but I want to get to a point in my life where I can, I'd love to sponsor a kid who wants to go to college. Not my own kids. I want to take care of that, but I'm talking about change it for other people. And if it's one person or 5,000 people, it doesn't matter. But that's my end game. My end game is to leave an impact and leave it better than I found it.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I know it sounds cliche, but it's truly that. But my big thing has always been finance. I feel like finance shackles people, their thought process, their possibilities. They won't. Oh, I could never. I hate hearing that.
Yeah. It's people say, I can't meditate. I'm like,
because you didn't try. Because you didn't try.
And you didn't. And then you gave up too quickly.
Yeah.
You it's like that's
you
that
can
same
do
thing.
anything if you really direct your energy to it. Right.
Yeah.
So you won't be able to grow yourself 8 inches, but who knows?
Right.
But yeah, that's what people they lack the discipline.
Yeah.
Everybody has the motivation, inspiration. Yeah, but it's a discipline, bro. You got to, all right, what's your plan? You got the plan? All right, now execute your plan.
Right.
It's too hard. All right, man, so you don't want it bad enough. So go back to what you started with, and when you're ready to get here, it's here for you.
That's it, right? It's
That's
when
it.
you're ready. When
Yeah.
you're actually ready to step into
When you
that
said,
space.
like, going back to that story I told you about the house, I was like, yo, no, you're wrong. Like, I didn't bug out on the lady, but I still
Fuck
carry,
you!
I still carry that chip 20 years later. I'm like,
Yeah.
fuck you, bro. Like, you're wrong. And I didn't go back and prove it wrong, but you know what I'm saying? Like, I had to do it for my family, so it was going to happen.
It wasn't
I'm
an
like,
option.
Yeah.
Your back was against
your
the wall.
Your answer was not happening. So,
It may be your answer.
Yeah.
And I respect that it's your answer.
So I'll go somewhere else.
But it's not right. It's not the answer I'm going to accept right now. It's not the answer I can accept right now. And yeah, it's about that discipline, right? It's the Aristotle, the Jocko Willink, right? Discipline equals freedom, right? It results in freedom. And when you become disciplined, and it doesn't have to be, you know, it manifests itself in different ways. It could be a relationship. It could be financial. It could be with a dietary practice. It could be with a meditation practice. It could be with a yoga or CrossFit or jiu-jitsu, whatever it is.
Going back to what you said you saw me earlier before you started, and you're like, hey, man, you lost a lot of weight.
I have it all recorded, by the way.
Right. So I was talking to JC about this earlier. You know, like I practice or I preach a certain thing,
Sure.
right? Discipline. I practice. And I saw a picture he had posted May 20th? May 24th. And I saw the picture, and that's not who I was. So
Inside.
Yeah, I looked at myself.
yeah,
I said,
yeah.
and you know what I said? I said, fuck that. That was it. I turned the switch on, and I just walked the other way. And my wife was like, wow, you're really disciplined, waking up at 4 in the morning. I said, yeah. No, because I got to walk it. Because, I mean, I use my kids as a motivator, right? Like, I'm like, I can't tell them to do this if I'm not doing this.
Yes.
It's like my father used to drink beer and smoke cigarettes and tell me not to do it.
Right.
While we watched the game together. And, you know, like, okay, luckily I just didn't want to be that, so I didn't go that way.
Yeah.
But I can't be that guy. I can't be like, yo, man, you should do this, and meanwhile I'm eating McDonald's. It's just not going to happen. So I walk my walk. And that's where I'm at now. And now I was talking to JC earlier. But look, I have now he made me do micro goals. He's like, what are you going to do September 29th? And what's your goal for this? And so I was like, all right, fuck you, bro. I'm gonna do it. And now, but that's take
the
a little.
motivator.
But you take, you know, like you self motivate yourself sometimes. Like the story, like you saw The Last Dance with Michael Jordan.
I didn't see all of it. The only episode I watched was
He
with
would
the
make
Pacers.
up. He would make up fake conversations with other people
Yeah.
to get him going for the next game to destroy them.
Yeah.
And I do that a little bit too with certain different things to kind of like
In the shower.
get
right?
me crazy. Oh, yo, in the middle of a workout, you're talking to yourself like, you know, like, fuck you, pussy, get up. And I'm like, yo, you're right, I gotta get up. And you know, and it works. For some people, it won't work.
Right.
You know, they don't like, but I have that personality that it works for me.
Yeah.
Negative reinforcement really pushes it.
Yeah, but it's the discipline in that, right? The only episode of The Last Dance I watched because I was a big Pacers fan.
Reggie Miller?
Was the Reggie Miller Pacers episode. And then I saw the Gary Payton. He was like, yeah, Jordan well covered. And Jordan's just like, yeah, okay.
Yeah, exactly.
He's just laughing at him. I was like, no one had Jordan covered back. Like, what are you, crazy? Like, that's cute that you thought you did.
Yeah.
But-
They took me off the defense.
Yeah.
That's why we lost. All right, bro. All right, maybe because his father died and he was going through some shit. You know, he was
It has
there.
nothing to do with you, Gary Payton.
Yeah.
Where can people connect with you?
I think I'm on all social media platforms. Ask Luis Omar on Instagram. Ask Luis Omar at hrnco.com. LinkedIn. I think I'm under Ask Luis Omar. I have a website, AskLuisOmar.com.
There you go.
I'm everywhere.
You are everywhere.
Just Google my name, Ask Luis Omar. You'll find it.
Ask Luis Omar.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, man.
No, thank you.
This was awesome.
Yeah.
It's fucking. We're doing Bikram.
We're gonna
podcasting
get some air conditioning next time. That'll be part of it.
I've said that in like June. I was like, I get air conditioning. I was like, you know what? It's Bikram podcasting. You lose some weight and you'll get some thought going.
Oh, I definitely did.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, man. Thank you
Thanks
for the
for
hat.
having me.
I appreciate it.
Of course.
Check out this man all over on all social media platforms. And thank you for your time, man. I appreciate it.
The Vinny Briscoe podcast. Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
Appreciate
Until next time, much love. Peace.
Bye.